What's going on, everybody? Happy Thanksgiving, 4th, and how you doing here? The last week or so in the NFL has been kind of crazy. You've had scapegoats, benchings, injuries, surprise releases, and players giving opinions as the season rolls on. Saquon Barkley's one of these players, stating in front of his locker that loyalty means nothing. No matter how loyal or committed you are, it's a business at the end of the day. That's something I've learned. What Saquon needs to understand is they drafted him to sell tickets. At the end of the day, it's a $10 million running back. But while he's tried to carry his team and they've used every ounce of his ability, when he hits free agency next, it's just going to be more tread on his tires and limit what he's actually worth and what value he'll be able to command on the market. So yeah, I don't think he's wrong. Loyalty really doesn't mean anything when it comes to the NFL and running backs. Every once in a while, you get one that gets drafted in the first round. And Matt Miller put it best. Draft the back. Play the back. If he's good, franchise tag the back one time and then draft the back. It's easier to find running back talent than wide receiver, quarterback. You look at the Rams with Darrell Henderson recently when Kyron Williams went out. You look at the Rams when they brought in C.J. Anderson to replace Todd Gurley. 2018 when Gurley got hurt. Anderson had two back-to-back phenomenal games, rushing for 167 yards in the first and 132 in the second. Scored a touchdown in both games. Wound up helping them in their playoff run. Had 123 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Cowboys. Didn't exactly have a fantastic game against the Saints, and obviously the Super Bowl. The Rams didn't win that year, but it's not really the point. The point is that Todd Gurley was a high overall draft pick that got hurt. And they pulled this man off the street because he had fallen out in Carolina that year. And next thing you know, he's the guy. For at least for a bit, he was the guy. But more importantly, they were able to still generate production out of a guy off the street. Now, Gurley was back the next year. Still wasn't the same after his injuries. It only lasted that year in Los Angeles and then moved on to Atlanta for one season before he went retiring. Because, again, injuries and running backs, can't have one without the other. And unfortunately for Saquon, he's been injured and he's been overworked. And he's the centerpiece and staple of the Giants' offense. So I feel bad for the guy. I do. And he's not wrong. Like I said, there's no loyalty when it comes to running backs because you can find production off the street. You can find production in the third round. You can find production in the fourth round. Austin Eckler is one of the top backs in the league right now. He wasn't even drafted. It's funny, he's kind of a victim of his own success because of the fact that he wasn't drafted, but he is one of the top backs in the game right now. It illustrates that you can find talent anywhere. As you can see here, he voiced his displeasure during the summer about the NFL devaluing the running back position and how top backs help teams win. And while he's not wrong, they should be paid because of the fact of what it costs to have a left tackle nowadays and a top wide receiver and a quarterback. There really isn't a lot of money left over for a running back. The odds of a running back getting a high contract really depend on where the team is at financially based on what year their quarterback is in. If you have a quarterback who's still on a rookie contract, then yeah, you could probably squeeze a team for a decent running back deal for 3 or 4 years until that quarterback is outside of his rookie contract. Once that happens, you're looking for a new place to run. And teams back to drafting running backs because they need to situate their money properly in order to have a competitive team. There was a lot of grumblings after the Chiefs lost to the Eagles this week, how the Kansas City Chiefs have done Patrick Mahomes wrong, and how could they possibly fit him with such a terrible wide receiver core and have such a great defense. Well, here's the thing, right? The salary cap for this season is $219 million. If you look at the graph, the top 6 players account for $113 million of their salary cap. That's more than half. More than half. Now, granted, they wasted $11 million on Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I mean, the guy's not a good football player. He's not a good wide receiver. He wasn't great when he was in Green Bay. He's dropped more balls than I can count. So it's not like it's a surprising thing that the receivers on this team drop balls. These same people applaud the Chiefs for paying Patrick Mahomes and making sure he's one of the highest paid quarterbacks in football. And Patrick Mahomes is a fantastic quarterback. There's absolutely no denying that. But you look through the figures, and yeah, his cap number is $37 million this year, but then it jumps to $57 million and $60 million and $63 million. And then there's basically no one left on the roster. Now, granted, they can continue to restructure his contract if they need to, but at that point, you're just robbing Peter to pay Paul. You look at the Aaron Rodgers situation in Green Bay this year before he was traded, and essentially he was able to force his way out of Green Bay because of how much money they would have to pay him if he stayed on the roster. Moving on, though, next we have the Indianapolis Colts and Jim Ezra, who I don't know what in the world that man's thinking. Shaq Leonard has been one of the better linebackers over the last 5 years than damn near just about everybody. The 3-time All-Pro, Walter Payton guy, phenomenal person, phenomenal athlete, phenomenal teammate, captain, leader, upstanding citizen. Look at this real quick. Guy finds out he's cut in the morning. He's still out there in the afternoon handing out turkeys to Indianapolis families that are in hard times and need food. That way everyone has a nice holiday. How in the world you let that man go? I don't know what that guy's thinking. I don't know what that guy's thinking. Schefter's reporting that either the Cowboys or the Eagles might land him. I don't particularly care for either one of those teams. But they both have really, really solid teams right now and give him a chance to win. The man deserves that after being stuck with Jim Ezra and his lunacy. So, good luck and hope the best for him. If there was a man that was more unlucky than Shaq Leonard, I would say this week it would have to be Joe Burrow, who found out last Friday that his season is officially done. You could see him on the sidelines this past Thursday night, gripping the football, trying to throw it, having the ball fall to the ground, him gripping his hand, squatting down in obvious pain. Unfortunately, his season's done. It's kind of ironic, but it might be a little bit of foreshadowing that he got hurt in week 11 2 years ago, and when his season was over, and then the following year they went all the way to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, they lost. But it'll be interesting to see where their season goes next year. Wish Joe a fast recovery. It's fun to watch him sling the rock. Moving on to the scapegoat section of our show today, the Bills sent Ken Dorsey packing, and the Steelers sent Matt Canada packing. Why, you ask? Well, underperforming quarterbacks is the real answer. Now, granted, the Steelers' offense has not looked good for most of the year, and you can place most of the blame on Matt Canada. However, Kenny Pickett is still Kenny Pickett, and Kenny Pickett was not great for most of the time that he was at the University of Pittsburgh. He happened to throw together one good year, and it wound up getting his ass drafted. However, Matt Canada was still the offense coordinator last year when everyone was all hyped up on how great Kenny Pickett could be. There was that ray of hope and the pixie dust of his rookie season and all the things that go with, that little glimmer of what somebody could possibly do. But yes, again, Kenny Pickett is Kenny Pickett. Okay. Matt Canada's not making Kenny Pickett overthrow balls. Matt Canada's not making Kenny Pickett miss reads. Now, while the offense might play better in the short term, there's no guarantee that firing Matt Canada is going to be the right move. Unfortunately, if you're losing the locker room, then you don't really have a choice, I guess. And the reports out of Pittsburgh were that the locker room was not happy with Matt Canada. Now, with that said, Ken Dorsey, Bill's offense has been phenomenal for the last couple of years. And yeah, he recently took over the offensive play calling duties, and he used to be the quarterback's coach. But when he was the quarterback's coach, Josh Allen was, ascending. And now Josh Allen is making mistakes with the football. Very similar to the mistakes he used to make when he was in college. If you look at the scouting reports in the draft, it says his accuracy diminishes greatly when he's forced to move his feet. Still factual. May have too much hero in his blood. Tries to overcome obstacles with arm talent and makes poor decisions. Too many low percentage throws. Needs to play smarter. Tends to baby deep throws. Essentially he's not highly accurate, a little too cavalier with the ball, and it's showing up lately. It's showing up in playoff games. It's showing up against good defenses. At the end of the day, Dorsey can only make the calls. He can't make the throws. those days are done for him. But it's Josh's show. Josh has to make the decisions, and Josh has not been making all the best decisions. Front office made a bad decision. Buffalo's top 10 in yards per game, top 10 in passing yards per game, top 10 in points per game. They What are you trying to solve? Joe Brady? Joe Brady's your answer? Joe Brady was removed from Carolina because they were in the bottom 10. And yeah, the Jets got their asses kicked by Buffalo this past weekend, and Joe Brady gets to post on his Twitter account that he's 1-0. Congratulations, Joe. Go play a good team, because the Jets aren't. Jets defense is touted as a good defense, but they're cooked. They're cooked. The team's bad. They've spent too much time on the field. There was nothing left. You guys ran up the score after they were exhausted. It's not like you played a good first half. Let's not pretend that. To finish off the scapegoats, and considering we were just talking about the Jets, let's discuss Zach Wilson really quick, who was benched during the Buffalo game because the offense wasn't performing up to snuff. Except Zach actually threw a touchdown pass. They really scored a touchdown for the first time in God knows how many games. However, it was time to make a change apparently. So we went with Tim Boyle, who has more career interceptions than touchdowns in the NFL and in college, because Zach Wilson was definitely the problem. Except it wasn't really Zach Wilson that's the problem. It's the offensive line that's the problem. Now, yeah, Zach looks bad here and Zach looks bad there, and Zach looked terrible last year. But at the end of the day, he's just a scapegoat. I honestly believe that Robert Saleh would have been fired this past week if it wasn't for the fact that they're playing on Friday versus the Dolphins, and it's a short week and wouldn't be enough time to have Hackett take over as the head coach. But I will not be at all surprised if they get waxed on Friday, and then by Monday, Robert Saleh's looking for a job. Because as we've discussed in the previous video, I think Nathaniel Hackett's going to be the next head coach of the Jets. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for listening. And until next time, have a good one.